How are you guys doing? Today is Saturday, June 26th, 2021. Out here in this quarantine, I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, now that the Lightning were able to beat the New York Islanders yesterday in Game 7 of the second Stanley Cup semifinal, for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to preview the Stanley Cup Final as we finally get down to the final two teams that are competing for this year's trophy. The Montreal Canadiens, the team that made it out of the North, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, the defending Stanley Cup champs, who were the only team to make it out of the Central Division. So without further ado, I'm just going to show each team's path and how they were able to get here and just give a little bit more insight into what fans can be looking forward to on Monday as the series starts then. So looking out first to the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning are the defending 2020 Stanley Cup champions. They won after hockey started right back up after the quarantine last year. They won in the bubble. So coming into the Stanley Cup playoffs this year, they would finish with the third best record in the Central Division, as they finished with 4 less points than the Florida Panthers, and they finished with 5 less points than the Carolina Hurricanes on the season. Regardless, it wouldn't stop them as soon as they made it in. They, as the third seed, their very first matchup in the Stanley Cup playoffs was against the Central Division second seed Florida Panthers. The first two matchups would be in Miami, as they beat the Panthers in the first game 5-4, and they beat them in the second one 3-1 to take a 2-0 series lead. At their first game at home, the Panthers would beat them 6-5, so they would, and then the Lightning would take game 3, so they would leave Tampa holding a 3-1 series lead. Going back to Miami for game 5, they would lose game 5, and then they would beat the Panthers at home in game 6, winning the series 4-2. Following that first series, they would face off against the first seed in the Central Division, the Carolina Hurricanes. They would win the first 2 games of that series in Charlotte to take a 2-0 series lead. When the series went back home, the Hurricanes would take game 3, and the Lightning would take game 4 at home to take a 3-1 series lead. And then when they went back to Carolina, they would beat the Hurricanes 4-1 to take the series in 5 to advance to the Stanley Cup semifinals, where they would face off against the New York Islanders, the 4th seed out of the East, but the team to make it out the East nonetheless. And the first two, because they had the 3rd seed, this was the first series in the only series in which, or this is the first series in which the Tampa Bay Lightning have had home ice advantage. In their first 2 matchups at home, the Islanders would take game 1 and the Lightning would take game 2, so the series would be tied at 1 after the first 2 games. Games 3 and 4 will be played in New York. The Lightning would take game 1 and the Islanders would take game 4, so that series would be tied at 3. Once the series went back to Tampa, the Lightning would beat the Islanders 8-0 to take a 3-2 series lead. The Islanders would even the series back at 3 after winning game 6 at home 3-2, and then the Islanders would take game 7 the Lightning would take game 7 against the Islanders, as the only goal will come from Yanni Gourde in the second period after they were shorthanded for the Tampa Bay Lightning to get here to the stage where they were last time. And now there's only one team that stands in their way from repeating, and that's the Montreal Canadiens. The Montreal Canadiens, of course, would make it here after finishing with the 4th best record in the North Division. They finished 4 points below 3rd place Winnipeg. They finished 13 points below 2nd place the Edmonton Oilers, and they finished 18 points below the 1st place Toronto Maple Leafs. But regardless, it wouldn't keep them from getting to where they are, of course, off the back of amazing defense and just incredible momentum offense, going off the back of Carey Price, as this might be Carey Price's best chance to win a Stanley, this is Gary Chance's opportunity to win the title this year. So coming in as the 4th seed, their very first matchup would be against the 1st seed Toronto Maple Leafs. Their first 2 games would be in Toronto. The the Canadiens would pick up the first game in Toronto and then the Maple Leafs would win game 2 in Toronto. So the series was tied at 1. Games 3 and 4 would be played in Montreal, and Toronto would take both of them as Montreal was down 3-1. They would win game 5 in Toronto to go up 3-2. They would win game 3 in Montreal to even the series at 3, and then they would win in Toronto in game 4 after they were down 3-1 to win the series to make it out of the first round. After making it out of the first round, they would face off against the 3rd seed Winnipeg Jets after the Jets beat the Oilers. They would go on to sweep the Jets in the very first 2 games in Winnipeg. They won the first 2 games 5-3 and 1-0. And then when they went to Montreal, they would beat the Jets 5-1 in game 3, and they would beat the Jets 3-2 in game 4 to get their only sweep of the series. And then they would go on to face off against the West Division champs, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. The Vegas Golden Knights, by the way, were the very first team in the 2020-21 NHL season to play a game in Canada this year, because all their games were played in their division. But regardless, and the very first 2 games were played in Las Vegas. Those games were split. The Golden Knights took game 1 and the Canadiens took game 2. Going into Montreal, the series was tied at 1, and then they would split games 3 and 4. The Canadiens would take game 3, and the Golden Knights would take game 4. And then going into game 5 in Vegas, the Canadiens would take this one 4-1 to take a 3-2 series lead, and then they would win game 6 in Canada 3-2 to do what they needed to advance to face off against the Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals. And right now that leads us to this series. Game 1 will take place on Monday at on the 28th on NBC Sports Network. And then games 1 and 2 will be in Tampa Bay. Games 3 and 4 would be in Montreal, and then Game 5, if necessary, would be in Tampa. Game 6, if necessary, would be in Montreal, and Game 7, if necessary, would be in Tampa. So once again, that is how both of these 2 teams got here, and there were 30 teams competing at the very beginning of the season. 16 made the playoffs, 4 from each division, and after a long, hard-fought season, at the end of this, only 1 team will end up victorious. And once this round is over, I will come back for a championship profile for the end of the 2020-2021 season and Stanley Cup playoffs. With that said, I am James Sims. Today is Saturday, June 26th. I want to thank ESPN and NHL.com for providing me all the facts and figures that I needed to do this episode. And once this round is over, like I said, I will do a championship profile. But until then, I want to thank everyone again. I want to thank everyone for listening to all 8 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well. And like I said, I will come back with another episode once this series is over. Until then, thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well. And don't forget to be elite. Peace out.